We are now in another third Friday training. Everyone, I'm with the Survive and Thrive Advocacy Center, and we are in the Big Bend of Florida. We have done these trainings now online for almost a year, thanks to COVID, and are delighted to have so many people joining, over 300 and looks like almost 350 people today. So you all know STAC assists all trafficking survivors in our area, and this is some of what we do. We do this with case management services, as well as we do lots of overall awareness presentations, education that is specific to various agencies, and we are just delighted to have, again, today our opportunity to do that with you today. Our website is here at the bottom of this slide. And know that we've got lots of new materials. I'd really like to direct you also to our community partner toolkit. It's got some social media and some really neat things that you can use to talk about being in this training today, and also just to help your colleagues and friends understand how important it is for everybody to be aware of what human trafficking is, how to spot it, and what to do. So one of the things we wanted to highlight using our funding, by the way, from Leon County and the CARES Fund, is how COVID-19 has affected human trafficking. We know that all these things are happening that are listed on this slide, and it makes us even more cognizant, really, of what we need to do to assist survivors. We know that crises like this make people even more vulnerable than they already were. And we know that the impact of both the economic situation, with so many people out of work and so many jobs changing or ending, that traffickers are preying on more and more people. This is an example of one of the flyers that we have. And again, if you have any questions about this, our phone number and website are at the bottom of this particular slide as well. Okay, next slide. Here's another example of what we do here locally. This is part of our outreach to survivors. If you'll notice, the first four questions up here really don't even say the words human trafficking. And we've been sharing this with a lot of our partners. And what we've learned is that so rarely does anyone really identify as being trafficked. They might have these things going on in their lives, and if they do, those might be indicators that they are trafficked. So anyway, I invite you all to look at this information and contact us if we can be of any help. Again, another example of that. So, and we have, by the way, and you probably found this as well as you do work, survivors come from all walks of life, all races, all ages, all gender. Nobody is excluded, and a lot of our text, this is one example, but we have different faces, different ages of people. And really that's deliberate, because we want everybody to realize that, that victimization happens across the board. Okay. Next slide. And so now what I'd like to do is introduce Marina Anderson. And I think, Marina, you get the prize for being the most prolific on our third Friday trainings in terms of being our presenter. And we're so grateful to you for that. Marina is the Regional Human Trafficking Coordinator for our area. This is in the Northeast and Northwest regions. We're actually in the Northwest region, STAC is, for the Florida Department of Children and Families. Marina is an active member of the Big Bend Coalition Against Human Trafficking. You'll see the logo for our local coalition here. STAC does this work with the Big Bend as a member of the Big Bend and as leadership in that coalition. And we also work with our partner, the International Rescue Committee. So Marina's been just an incredible asset to our coalition, and through her work throughout the North, really across the Panhandle, Marina, you know the most, I think, than anybody does in terms of this, this issue and working with children.
So we're going to go ahead and begin this presentation. As they've already spoke about, you can ask questions in chat. We're going to have a Q&A at the end. of this session as well. I did see something pop up and someone asked, could they have the slide presentation? This presentation is being recorded and it's going to be put on the OCW page as well as the STAC page. So you will be able to go back and look at those links and those PowerPoint slides as well as the link for the video. So before we get started, hopefully everybody can see the screen and no issues there. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So first of all, a lot of times when people think of DCF or Department of Children and Families or child protection or child welfare, they think of investigations on a family. And of course, that is our primary focus with Department of Children and Families in Florida. And I say that because many of you probably are not necessarily in the state of Florida. You may be in another state. We've even had some people from other countries join these sessions. So I want to kind of explain what we do here in Florida. So as far as DCF in Florida, we do investigate all areas of trafficking. So it's not just familial trafficking or family focused on a caregiver of trafficking a child. We investigate anything that's pimp led. And with me also, if I say the word pimp during this training, I'm referring to a trafficker. I don't normally say the word pimp because it's not in our legal language and it's a glorified word. So you will be hearing me say trafficker a lot, but that's what I'm referring to. We have a lot of gang-led trafficking, and we know nationwide this is increasingly becoming a problem. Gangs have realized they can make just as much money, if not more money, in selling a person over and over again. You know, if they sell a drug or they sell a weapon or what have you, they have to go back and get more drugs and more weapons. But again, they can sell a person over and over and over again. And that's why they are actually making more money in that. So we know this is $1 billion industry at this point, and people from all walks of life are getting involved in it, unfortunately. So gangs is one of the areas in which we investigate. Again, that familial led or involving a caregiver. Survival, there's no third party, but the perpetrator is the buyer with that. And when we're dealing with children, they cannot consent in the state of Florida. And so if they are under the age of 18, and even though no one's making them do anything, there's no force, there's no fraud, there's no coercion, maybe they're selling their pictures themselves on the internet, on apps, or maybe they want to ride out of town, maybe they're on the runaway status and they want to get out of town and they offer a sexual act in exchange for a ride. That's considered a survival trafficking, and they're going to be a verified victim of trafficking in state of Florida law as well as federal law. And then labor trafficking. And with labor trafficking, you do have to prove force and fraud regardless of their age, whether they're a minor or if they're an adult for labor trafficking. But we do investigate all those areas. We began investigating cases back in 2009. In 2009, we only had 43 reports of trafficking. As you can see, as the years progressed, the numbers increased. And with that, the reason for that is the advocacy work around it. So we started recognizing what human trafficking was. We started really training our staff, training law enforcement. There was legislative mandates that came later down the road that required other professions such as healthcare, hospitality, industries to have this training as well. Law enforcement was required to increase their hours. So now they have to have 4 hours of human trafficking training for law enforcement as well. So as more professions came on board and we were teaching them what are the signs and how to identify, those numbers increased. Now, these are numbers that was called into the Florida Abuse Hotline. So a lot of times people get numbers off the Polaris Project, and that's great. That's the National Human Trafficking Hotline. But everything that Polaris has, we have, but not necessarily everything we have Polaris has. So sometimes you can see that numbers look a little bit different. These numbers that I'm showing today also is based on unique IDs, which means that there's a lot of times, and unfortunately, we have a lot of recidivism. So once we have identified a child and we're no longer using that number because we're only going to count that child as one report or one time. So that our numbers are actually, as far as the cost of the hotline, or significantly higher than these numbers that we're seeing here today. But these are how many children we have identified each year. So again, we want to talk about COVID and how this affects this issue. And when we're talking about the social media recruitment, when we're talking about apps and internet websites, and how we saw the effect since COVID. We have seen an increase in this type of recruitment over the last several years. But when COVID hit and everyone kind of went to a virtual platform, just as we are today, schools were virtual. There was a lot of interaction where, you know, kids couldn't be face to face with one another, so they were playing their video games to have that interactivity with their friends. We saw definitely a strong increase in that recruitment piece as well. And we really feared that. Our numbers went down, as you can see in the slide, when COVID hit. And a lot of that is because they did not have interaction. Children did not have an interaction with professionals. So they weren't in the classroom, so the teachers weren't seeing what was going on. They were not in counseling, or if they would be a Zoom. They didn't have that interaction. So a lot of the mandatory reporters that I just spoke about, the healthcare providers, the teachers, law enforcement, hospitality, all these folks were not having that face-to-face with kids. So we saw those numbers significantly increase or decrease. But what we saw was that social media recruitment was increasing. And we were seeing a lot of ads with children being advertised on there, and a lot of other websites where children were selling their pictures for significant amount of money. And we're going to talk all about that throughout this presentation. So again, with COVID-19, what we were seeing, let me minimize this. We know that the human trafficking networks to go further underground with illicit activities and technology. We saw a lot of the traffickers exploiting sex trafficking victims through the dark web and other internet-based methods. There's also been that increase of online child sexual exploitation, which again, we all were very concerned about when we were making decisions to go virtual. That was the first thing that I thought of. I'm like, the kids are going to have so much interaction on, you know, screen time, whether it be on their phones, whether it be on their tablets or on their gaming systems. And I knew that was going to be a huge challenge because we had seen that increase in recruitment over the past few years. COVID-19 also made it more difficult for human trafficking victims, which is challenging enough during normal times. So due to COVID restrictions, mandatory reporters didn't have any contact. So they had very limited access to be able to communicate of what's going on, or for folks to be able to pick up the signs of what possibly could go on. Like Robin said in the introduction, majority of victims are not going to self-identify. You're not going to get the help me, save me, I'm a victim of human trafficking. That's not usually what you're going to get. There's a lot of trauma bonding that occurs. There's a lot of lure that occurs. There's a lot of shame and stigma that goes along with it. So, you know, these traffickers are master manipulators. They get folks to fall in love with them, to really care for them. They don't want to break their trust. They don't want to break the relationship. And they really see normally authorities more as the bad guys than they do as actually trying to help them. So that's, and it really takes that interaction piece. It really takes that building that trust, that rapport, to get them to open up and really realize what exactly is happening. So we knew after the pandemic began, we knew there was a lot of webcamming. We knew there was a lot of erotic video and photos being shared on the internet. We knew that this was happening both with children and adults. Due to people not working, not receiving income, they made choices to supplement their income by producing pornography on webcam-based apps. The recruitment of youth on social media platforms again increased, making them aware and curious about online sexual apps. And many of these apps, like Cash App accounts, where the viewers will pay the user to perform sexual acts. And then we saw the exotic dancing, pornography, fetish play, all that occurring. We knew that, we're going to talk about OnlyFans and some of those app-based downloads tremendously increased during COVID. And again, that was children being on there as well as adults. We knew that there was a lot of advertisement with TikTok that was encouraging minors and young adults to exotic dancing and live webcamming. We knew when the exotic dance clubs were closed down, that did not stop. They were going underground. They were dancing at private parties and online. And they were making a lot of money. And it really, that's a challenge for us, when we're working with minors and we're trying to get them on the right path and not see them go down a rabbit hole of what can happen later down the road. But, it's a challenge for us because, we're trying to get them into maybe continuing their education, or maybe they're trying to get into a trade school or, get a job and they're making minimum wage, but yet they can go and get on these apps and sell pit nudity or exotic dancing and make lots of money. But, once those pictures are out there, once those videos are out there, it's almost impossible to get them back. And that's something that they really, truly don't understand. So as the purpose of this presentation, I just wanted to kind of break down what we're referring to. So child prostitution was stricken from our legal language in Florida on October 1 of 2016. So therefore, again, like I said, if they are if they're under the age of 18 and they're involved in any form of prostitution, they are a verified victim of commercial sexual exploitation of a child. So again, that child prostitution language was stricken from our language and replaced with commercial sexual exploitation of a child, or CSEC. So you'll hear me say CSEC quite a bit during this presentation. And that's use of any person under the age of 18 for sexual purposes in exchange or promise of exchange for money, goods, or services, or the promise of money, goods, and services. I added that promise piece in here because that's very important. Promise is solicitation, and solicitation of a minor is illegal, both on federal standards and state standards. So if you are working with a child and they tell you that they were at a bus stop and someone approached them and said, hey, you want to make some fast cash? All you have to do is, take off your clothes and dance. And they said, sure, no problem, I can do that. Okay, then they do that and they're a victim of trafficking. Or maybe they say, absolutely not, that's disgusting, I'm not doing that. That still needs to be a report to our hotline because that's solicitation. And we know we have a trafficker out there that is soliciting children for exotic dancing or possibly more. So we need to know that that's happening. So that's very important that if there's any solicitation, whether it's in person, maybe it's online, maybe someone approached them on, a social media platform or a website and said, ask someone, hey, can you send me some nude pictures and I'll send you $100. And that kid says, no, I'm not doing that. We still need to know there's someone out there soliciting and try to figure out and identify who this person is. And then a commercial sex act is any sex act on account of which anything of value is given to or received by a person. So it's very important that, again, we said anything of value. It doesn't have to be monetary. It could be a piece of bubble gum for that matter. You put a price tag on that. It could be for, candy. It could be for a ride out of town. It could be for food. It could be for clothes, shelter. It could be for hair, nails, anything that you could put a value on. And there's an exchange of something for that, exchange of a sexual act for that item, then that is a commercial sex act. So what are the risk factors for children that could be recruited? And I mentioned a lot about children because that's what our primary focus is, obviously, with DCF. But I'm talking about young adults as well, or just adults in general. You can all be lured and be brought into trafficking through sextortion, which we're going to be talking a lot about today. So are they under age of 18? We know that's going to put them in a higher risk category. Do they walk to school or to the store alone, or really anywhere alone? And it's really important that kids know that they need a buddy system, because when you're with multiple people, you're less threatening, you're more threatening to that trafficker. Whereas if you're alone, you're definitely at risk of someone approaching. Then sometimes maybe they feel insecure. They own or have access to social media and gaming systems. That's majority of people. Majority of kids have access to social media or games, especially online gaming. The desire to develop romantic relationships. I mean, we read those fairy tales from very young ages, right, to our young kids about these, Cinderella and Snow White and all these, romantic fairy tales. So they crave that. They crave that romantic relationship. Are they attached to consumer goods? What teen is not? All teens want iPhones or they want, some form of a cell phone, or they want their computers, or they want, hair and nails, or they want nice clothes or name brand clothing. And again, I'm not just talking about girls or boys, men, women. Our LGBTQ plus community is at risk as well. They feel misunderstood. Maybe they have fights with their parents. Again, what teenager did not? Sometimes feel like their parents don't care or they're not listening to them. They want more independence and they're testing those boundaries. Again, what have I said? Pretty much every kid is at risk based on that description. We knew that online recruitment back in 2004, only about 38% of the victims were meeting their traffickers online back in 2004. And you jump to 2018, 2019, 2020, when COVID hit, it's well beyond 90%. Majority of the cases, I would almost say 99% of the cases that we're staffing has that social media recruitment piece. They're communicating online. They are using text apps. They are using cash apps, Venmo, PayPal to make the transactions. So again, it's turning almost everything virtual when you look at this. And there's a reason for that. Traffickers use that sextortion to coerce children on social media and gaming systems. We see this all the time, folks. Traffickers are actively out there on social media and these internet sites, just waiting to fill that void. And that's very important because we all have vulnerabilities. We ourselves as adults have vulnerabilities. Think back when you were a teenager or a preteen of your vulnerability that you may have then. If you need a father figure, that's who they're going to be. If you need a mother figure, that's who they're going to be. If you need a friend, if you need a protector, if you want romance, boyfriend, girlfriend, that's who it's going to be. And just as I said, victims can be children, they can be adults. Again, they could be male, they could be female, LGBTQ plus community. And then the same thing with the traffickers. They're all walks of life. They're male, they're female. We've seen a lot of recruitment piece where, especially with the gangs that have minors that's actively recruiting other kids to join gangs. And if it's a female, normally their role is going to be for sex. Now, in gangs, sometimes that's just the service, the male gang members, and they have no say. If a male gang member wants to have sex with them, they can't tell them no. Or it's to outsource it, and they're selling them for sex to raise money for the gang. So we see it in both ways. There's a lot of sexual elements that go with that's involved in gangs. They're going to comment. They're going to talk to them. They're going to be reaching out on social media. Every time your child posts something, they're going to be right there to comment how beautiful they are, how handsome he is. Waiting there to listen. And listen is important because that's where we fail as adults. Many of us, especially of those that work in high stress fields, for instance, healthcare, law enforcement, child welfare, we're dealing with a lot of people's trauma all day long, right? And we come home to our sanctuaries, we just want peace, right? We just want to be able to relax and chill and just not have to deal with anything. Well, that can be an issue when it comes to your kids because you might walk through that door and the kids are constantly waiting to tell you something somebody did, especially if you have siblings. So, they're arguing, they're fighting over something that you may think is very frivolous. Or maybe something very minute happened at school and you're like, you just need to deal with it. I've been dealing with all this trauma all day long. I don't have time to deal with something this petty. You deal with it. But what that does is shut your kid down. They feel like they can't come to you with problems because you don't want to listen to them. And that's what I see so much with the kids that I have worked with over my career is that when I ask them what drew them to this person, what led them to connect so deeply with this person, and the simple answer, they listened to me. They listened to me when nobody else would. They understood me when no one else did. That's important because that's how easy kids, and it's not just your extreme at-risk youth. We're not talking about kids that are in foster care or group care or, long DJJ records or runaway kids. Yes, are they at the highest level of recruitment? Absolutely. But I'm talking about your children. I'm talking about the average child, the kids that have no risk factors, the kids that, have a great home life or very popular at school, involved with sports, nothing that we would normally look for. But someone was out there and listening to them. That's important. They use that to groom. They're actively, again, every time they post something, they're there to talk to them. And then that turns into chatting, and they'll private chat. And then it will turn into send me pictures you don't normally send others. And it will be very innocent in the very beginning. Maybe it's a bathing suit pic or something that they may not post. And then it's, I'm catching feels for you. I'm falling in love with you. I love you. Send me pictures that you definitely wouldn't send anyone else. And that's when you start getting the nudity. And again, male, female. And then that'll go on for a period of time, picture sharing, live webcamming maybe. And then they will tell them, if you don't do what I tell you to do, I'm going to post those pictures to your social media. I'm going to release that webcam that you sent me or that video you sent me. And these kids, that self-image is everything. And they will say, I will do whatever you tell me to do. Please don't release that picture or that video. And they'll say, send me more graphic pictures. Go live webcamming and have sex in front of the camera with one of your friends. And that happened for a period of time. And then there's going to be an Uber waiting on you outside your school. And that Uber is going to take you to a hotel. And you go to room 232. This is the sexual act I want you to do. The buyer's going to cash out me the money. Once I receive it, there'll be an Uber waiting on you outside the hotel to take you back to school or take you home. Or I need you to pack a bag. There'll be an Uber waiting on you to take you to the bus stop, to the bus station. There'll be a ticket waiting on you with your name on it. Get on the bus. It's going to take you up to New York, and you're going to work a hotel for a few days, and then it'll take you back to the bus station and take you home. And that's when we start getting the Amber Alerts. And they go off all times of the day and night. You probably received them that, this young person last seen with or possibly with this person. And that's after we go through the social media and find out they've been communicating for months, years, maybe, who knows how long, with a trafficker. And that's who they're with every day. This is our everyday occurrence for us. It's a dangerous, dangerous game. And sometimes we locate the kids, and sometimes, unfortunately, we don't. That social media recruitment, we know that's filling that vulnerability. They're building that trust. They get them to share more of their body pictures. They move them from monitored page to less monitored page. They move them from sharing to selling or selling pictures online of themselves. And again, this is get on TikTok. It's going to lay it out to these kids on what to do, how to sell these pictures, how to make money. Walking around and you'll see a bed of dollar bills of how much money that they made dancing. It's out there everywhere. Sex sells, right? So again, that sextortion piece is huge for us. Traffickers, why are they moving to online? As you know, many youth these days do not communicate very well. They may, they don't look you in the eye. They don't like to talk, but they will text all day long, right? You can hold a full conversation in texting or online typing. And traffickers know this. So if they're at the malls, they're at everywhere kids hang out, they're at the skating rings or go-kart tracks or Top Golfs or arcades or wherever kids are, they're still there. But what we see more and more happening is they're also everywhere online. And they may be only to hold a conversation and engage someone in a conversation in person, maybe one or two kids over a period of time. say an hour, 2 hours, maybe 1 or 2 kids. But then you get online and it's hundreds of kids within the same time frame that they can make contact with. So that's why it's becoming so popular. So understanding the things not to do on social media: don't ever post your full name. Don't ever post your date of birth. Post contact information, phone, email, or address. And this is not just kids, folks. This is everyone, including yourself. Don't post pictures you don't want everyone to see, because they can be screenshotted. Now, a lot of times people say, oh, well, if it's Snap or Snapchat, it can't be. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit, on how there's other apps out there that are secret apps that people can put on there that does capture those pictures. And it doesn't send you a nice little message that says somebody screenshotted your picture. So you have to be very careful with that. You have to assume any communication here is private. Post information about your school or work. Talk about places and times where you're going to be going. Many apps that you use have geolocators on it. You probably don't even know it. You know, it can tell you where you are. I mean, if a person knows what they're doing and how to go in there and figure out where you're at, or, you know, where you frequent. Talk about places and times where you're going to be. Post information about new purchases. Add friends you don't really know. And do enable privacy on your account. Why is it so important to talk to kids about this stuff? You know, when I'm talking to youth that we work with, and they're like, well, no one made me sell those pictures. You know, I was making $100 a pop for those pictures. I was making really good money. But once they're out there, you can't get them back. And they're just sold over and over and over and over again. People all over the world, right? It's a world wide web, right? They're everywhere. Colleges and employers are looking at your social media accounts. They're making decisions. You know, you may look great on paper on that resume or that college application, but they have folks that's all they do is search social media and see what are you really like? You know, what's your day-to-day really like? And they're going to be able to find that through your social media posts. And that's why, you know, again, those pictures just don't go away. They just will resurface. Keeping children safe on social media, educate yourself and stay up to date with the new apps. Every few weeks, do an online search and see what type of apps they're downloading or what they're playing. Check the kids' device frequently and thoroughly. View their activity, their messages, their contacts. This is not invasion of their privacy, folks. This is for their safety. If you care about your kids, you need to be doing this. And why do I tell everyone this is so important? And if you've ever seen one of my presentations before, you know, I say this all the time. If you're at dinner tonight and you get a knock on the door, and are you going to answer it? And the person says, hey, can I come in and play with your kids? You're going to say, absolutely not. You wouldn't say, come on in, they're in the back. Y'all can play in the back bedroom. You would never do that for a stranger that's coming into your home. But if you let your kids on social media, you let your kids on these websites, you let your kids play games, you let your kids play with strangers every day, and you let that stranger through that door every day. And that's how you have to start thinking about it. It's not about privacy, it's about protection. And you have to be able to be the parent, not the friend, and be able to help these kids know how to be safe online. Again, whether they're young kids or whether they're older kids, they're preteen, they're teenagers, maybe they're adults, maybe they're young adults and they're in college. All this is important. You need to be communicating with the kids or young adults. You need to set those appropriate parental controls, age restrictions for downloading apps, time restrictions. You need to discuss the apps with the kids. Ask them why they want this app. What is it going to do? How are they going to keep themselves safe? And really talk to them about the dangers of oversharing. It's that social media is not their diary, not their journal. They shouldn't be releasing personal photos. And most importantly, maintain a connection and relationship. Your kids cannot be so scared to come to you that they will not come to you with a problem. And we see that all the time. They're terrified to tell mom or dad about, oh, well, I sent this picture, or I was talking to someone and I thought that they cared for me and I sent them pictures I shouldn't, and now they're using them against me. Or, I sold this picture. I went in, they said I would make some fast cash, and I did, but now I'm scared and I don't know what to do. They're asking for more pictures. They have to be able to come to you and you help them. Even though there has to be consequences, and I understand that completely as a parent, there always is consequences of your actions, but they have to make sure that you have an open relationship that you can talk to kids. And if you're not comfortable talking about sexual sensitive stuff, maybe find someone that is, whether that's a counselor, maybe it's someone at their school, maybe it's someone within your faith-based community, or just within your community in general, your friends or relatives. You have to talk openly to your kids, because if you're not discussing healthy sexual relationships, if you're not discussing sexual topics, then don't fool yourself. They're learning it in elementary school. The kids know so much more than we ever did at their age, because the access, the accessibility, all they have to do, what do we do when we don't know something? We Google it, right? Google's my best friend. I Google everything. So what do you think your kids are doing? If they are curious about something, they're going to Google it. And if they're, it's so easy. Type in penis, vagina, whatever, and it's going to come right up. Porn's right there at their fingertips, 24/7, all the time. So sex is out there. You have to communicate and put those safeguards out there. And again, that privacy piece. Remember, their safety is more important than their privacy. And you're not being nosy by checking their cell phones regularly. You have to explain the reasons why you're doing this. And it's to keep them safe. When we're talking about gaming systems, this is a whole nother issue that we have, right? The kids are playing games with people from all over the world, whether they're minors, whether they're adults. They may think they're a minor and they're really adult. You just don't know. You have to know, you have to keep that open dialogue. You have to know what they're playing. I don't know nothing about gaming systems. I've never been a gamer ever. But I still do my research. When my kids were younger and they wanted a new game or wanted to download, I would do the research on it, even though I wouldn't personally be playing it. Now, if you are a gamer, no, great, that you have an advantage. Get on there and check it out yourself. What's it about? Is this something you're going to approve of? Play the game with your kid. Is it something that you would approve of? Because there's a lot of games out there, folks, that have a lot of, not only the violence that goes along with it, which that's a whole nother topic for another day, but just the sexual content. For instance, the new release of the Grand Theft Auto. In the game, you play first person. So you're doing everything in first person. So it's very realistic. And not only that, there's an option where you can pick up a prostitute. They get in the car. There's an exchangement of conversation. And the next thing you know, the head's going down in the lap. Now, it doesn't show genitalia, but you can pretty much figure out what's happening in this game. And that's what your kids are playing and getting bonus points for things happening. You have to know what your kids are playing and the dangers of it. And is this something that you would approve of to be in your home? You have to check regularly who they're playing, what's their social networking, their gaming sites, see what information they're posting. You need to supervise the photos and videos they're sending online. You need to discourage the use of webcams and mobile video devices, especially for younger kids and teens and tweens, for video safety. Teach the children how to protect personal information posted online and follow the same rules with respect with the personal information of others. Be sure your children use privacy settings on all social media platforms. Instruct your children to avoid meeting face-to-face with someone they only know online or through a mobile device. You can't always recognize a predator, right? They don't look like that creepy man in that white van, right? It's everywhere. It could be male, female, just as I said, young, old. Teach your children how to respond to cyberbullying. Establish an agreement with your children about internet use at home and outside of the home. Set age-appropriate filters. Consider using monitoring software. There's lots of it out there. Bark is one of them. Yes, is there a fee? But it captures what your kids are doing. Even if they delete it or try to delete it, it's still going to be captured. You need to check what they're doing online, look at their browsing history, set limit and consider using only time limiting software when they can be online or on the games. Disallow access to chat rooms or live video chatting. Limit your child's instant messaging to a parent approved buddy list. So is it their teacher if they're virtually, or are they doing hybrid schooling or whatever? Yeah, they might have to have some access to these IMs because they might have to go into a group or, you know, some type of chatting with their teacher or whatever. Use safe search engines, set up the family's cybersecurity protections, utilize parental controls on your child's mobile phone and mobile devices, and parental controls should be utilized on internet-enabled devices such as their desktops, their laptops, their tablets, their mobile devices. Music connection is another one, like Spotify or Apple Music. You're going to go through all the apps they have on their phone. You're going to enable restrictions on installing apps. So you have to approve it and put in a code or what have you to be able to download those apps. And ask your children questions. Why do they need the app? What is it used for? How are they going to stay safe while using that app? These are 21 apps that we see over and over again. Again, it could be other apps out there. I'm not saying these are the only apps that parents should be aware of, but these are the most common ones. And they're on there. You know, kids are on Snapchat. Young kids are on Snapchat. Plenty of Fish. You think of that, or Bumble. And you're like, oh, no big deal. That's a dating app. Are kids on there? Folks, they are. You know, whether they're your college kids or even the teenagers, they're on there to meet people, to hook up. They put in a fictitious date of birth or what have you. Grindr, ongoingly have issues with Grindr with our our LGBTQ plus community. TikTok, advertisements all over the place on how to make money in criminal ways or in dangerous ways, whether that be exotic dancing or whether that be OnlyFans or what have you. Kick, excuse me, it's a private text messaging app that doesn't use their data plans to be able to use that. And you can erase those messages and parents have no idea who they're texting. So again, back in 2004, about 85% of the victims met their trafficker online. 2018, at least 58% who first met their victim online eventually convinced them to meet in person. That's pretty staggering right there. 58% convinced them to meet in person. And then 58 of victims still eventually met their traffickers face to face. We also see that a lot of times they never meet face to face. The trafficking is occurring because they have that sextortion piece. They still have something to hold over them. We have cases right now that we're working with multiple victims, and the traffickers, these people that are sextorting them, don't even live in the United States. They live in other countries. And they're still being able to have that entrapment. They're still able to have that control over that person because they have all those pictures, all those videos, and they don't want them released. Again, you can see that it's ongoingly. The traffickers are going to comment. They're going to ask to be their friend. They're going to gather information. They're going to use to recruit them and groom them. They start chatting with them. The grooming occurs over text messaging apps, convincing someone to send risky pictures, using it to extort them. They're going to feel that vulnerability. They're going to build that trust, that trauma bonds being formed. They get to share more of their body pictures. They move them from monitored to less monitored pages like Kik or other type of apps that are out there for them to be able to communicate off data plans. And they move them from sharing to selling or selling pictures online of themselves. Apps parents should know about. And again, this presentation is going to be available for you so you can see these apps that are out there. Of course, Instagram, Snapchat, Tumblr, a lot of people know about those. Kik, Periscope, WhatsApp, Omegle, Tinder, all very common. Your kids are on Tinder. Your kids might be on Grindr. They're on Tumblr. They're on Plenty of Fish. And then some apps that you may not know about. Meet Me, very common. It's a social networking site. Photo Swap, where again, a lot of sexual content being swapped on Photo Swap. A Burn Note is like a Kick. It's another texting app. Scout is a flirting app, and there's no age verification. Hidden Text, again, another one like Kick. There's lots of them out there. Let's Date, a lot of sexual contact, nudity, and drug use. The Clip Chat is similar to Snapchat, but again, those pictures are captured. Tango is another very common one. Hi There is a social media app that people get high and get online and talk about them being high. Backchat, another anonymous messaging app, and there's no cell service required on that one, so they don't have to have a data plan. Hot or Not, we had a lot of cases with this, and it's where they post pictures of themselves and kids vote whether they're hot or not. We're having a lot of issues within schools of this happening. Some were posting pictures of themselves, and some of it was other people posting pictures of them. Snap Hack, that's an important one because those are captured and saved pictures from Snapchat. Again, we see that a lot, and it does not send a notification that someone has screenshotted your picture. Bang with Friends is a meetup to have sex. We again see that all the time. You have to look at a lot of these apps do have these GPS locators that for tracking. Foursquare is one of them also that has a tracking piece to it. So they have the geolocator, so they know exactly where your kid is when they're using that. TikTok, again, huge blow up since COVID. This is probably one of the #1 apps that just took off when COVID hit. So we know they've reached 800 million, and they're expected by the end of, well, it said in 2020, 2021, it's going to definitely reach probably over 1 billion users. 50% of TikTok global audience is under the age of 34, and 26% are between 18 and 24. We know that it's been downloaded about 1.5 billion times worldwide from all over, 123 million from the US. The average user spends about 52 minutes per day on TikTok. We know that it's valued about 75 million, and it's just going to continue to increase. And again, 60 million monthly active users in the United States, 60% are female and 40% are male. And those are based on last year's. 2 other sites that blew up again during COVID is OnlyFans or Just for Fans. There's other ones out there. I don't want to just focus strictly on these 2, but these are the 2 most popular ones. But there's definitely many others out there as well. And OnlyFans is subscription-based. It's a social media platform. It's a lot of sexual content, a lot of pornography. And again, minors are on there, adults are on there, pretty much anything that you would want to see, fetish, play, what have you's on there. They have to do a subscription, and that could be from $4.99 to $49.99 a month. And again, that's how they're making their money. A lot of parents, when they were not working during COVID and they had to supplement their income somehow, a lot of parents were on these sites and they were selling pictures of themselves. They were live webcamming. They were doing sexual acts. They were having sex in front of the camera. They were taking off their clothes in front of the camera. And again, any type of fetish play that was also going on. But we had multiple reports that was coming in where the children were walking into the room while the parent was on these sites. So now these subscribers knew that they had children, or the children was sitting on the bed, maybe babies or toddlers sitting on the bed as the parent is doing these acts in front of these live webcams. So again, multiple reports was coming in for that. But not only, again, with TikTok was just completely putting everything out there for these kids to get on there and do these things and make this kind of money, making lots of money. And again, that's what we were up against. But again, once those pictures get out there, once those videos are out there, not a whole lot we can do about it. Just for Fans is just another platform, very similar to OnlyFans. It's all genders. Just for Fans was founded by a pornography star. There's a model referral as well with that. They recruit models, escorts, exotic dancers, porn stars, live camera performers, as well as amateurs just looking to make some extra money by selling nude pictures, naughty clips. And again, it's subscription based. So what are some tips for protecting your kid on TikTok, or maybe yourself if you have your own TikTok? Make sure that you switch to a private account. The default setting when you register is public. Unless you switch it, it's going to be public. Opt out of any personalized data, and that prevents TikTok from gathering any of your data. Change all safety settings to friends, and that limits who can comment, duet with you, or react to your videos. Change the allow others to find me toggle. This prevents your account from showing up in searches. Enable restriction mode, and this helps block mature content. Other types of social media, YouTube, Club Penguin, Mickey Mouse Club, all those type of things that maybe young kids are on. Young kids know how to work these things. Even you give a 3-year-old a phone and they're going to know how to swipe up. They're going to know how to maybe put in your code. They're going to know how to get to Snapchat and do the little funny filters. They're going to know to get on YouTube. And there's a lot of things on there. Even the YouTube that's designed for children, there's still a lot of inappropriate content on there. There's from suicide cartoons to sexual content cartoons. It's out there. You have to be aware of what your kids, you can't just think because it's labeled for a child that it's safe and it's okay. That's not always the case. You're the parent. This is not your babysitter. You need to be monitoring what they're on. Again, kids are curious. We are all curious. We were curious as kids. The difference is when we were kids, you might have may run across a magazine or something, or a video, or HBO After Dark, or Cinemax After Dark, or something like that, maybe. But we didn't have it at our fingertips the way the kids do. We have seen an increase with kids that are addicted to pornography. And I'm talking about young kids. I'm not talking about just your teenagers. I'm talking about 10, 11, 12-year-olds. I've seen 8-year-olds addicted to pornography. And what are they searching? They're not searching 40-year-old women or men. They're searching their age groups because that's what they're curious about. But they don't know how to process that information. And then they act upon it. And then we get child-on-child reports where they're acting on each other. And it's just a snowball effect. You have to be careful in making sure that their kids are not jailbreaking their phones, because that will enable you to be able to put those parental restrictions on there. Kids are smart. They know if I have a problem with my computer, Excel spreadsheet at this point, whatever, who do I call? Call my kid. Hey, can you help me with this? This is being wonky. I don't know exactly what's going on. Kids know things. They're keeping up with technology that we're not. So you need to do your research. They know how to jailbreak these phones. They can do it themselves. They don't have to take it to someone. If they can YouTube it and figure out pretty much how to do anything. They can be able, if once it's jailbroken, again, those parental restrictions go away. They can get down to mature content with no restrictions. With iPhone users, they have to download the software on the computer and then upload their phone to jailbreak it. We're going to watch this video clip, and basically it's just telling you, don't walk around with blinders on. You have to be constantly observant and paying attention to what's going on when you're around your children, when you're at home. Again, your home is your sanctuary, but you still have to be on guard. So again, don't shut your eyes. Take those blinders off. Pay attention to what your kids are doing. Don't allow them to be in a room with the door closed with, on their gaming systems, on their computers or tablets or cell phones. Be monitoring what they're doing. Pay attention. We are guilty as parents of allowing them to way more time alone with these devices. And again, you have to think about that stranger. If they're playing with a stranger, they're talking with a stranger. We're guilty of kids playing games with the gaming headsets on. You have no idea what's going in their ear, what people are talking about. Understanding emojis is another important thing. There's a whole nother communication. It's one of the fastest growing languages out there. And, you know, you may use emojis. Kids are doing the same. They may communicate solely using emojis. You have to understand what it means. You know, these are just some of the X-rated emojis. There's others out there. But again, if they're sending a picture of an eggplant, it's probably not because that's their vegetable of choice. Most kids don't even eat eggplant. You know, a peach could be a butt. It could also be a vagina. It could be cherries, could be female breast, or talking about their virginity. A cat, there's several different cat emojis on your phones. It's usually for a vagina. The camel is an act of sex. Water, ejaculation or orgasm. You have the hand symbols, which is some type of stimulation or sexual intercourse. You have the hand to the peach, it's a spanking. You have the 6'9" emoji, which is a sexual position. Tacos is also usually genitalia, female genitalia. If you have the fork and the knife, you can imagine what that they're trying to say. It's oral sex. If you see a camera, usually is asking for a nude picture, or either they're about to send a nude picture. The grapes, male testicles, the female with the making the O symbol, and it's an orgasm. Oral sex is the open mouth or the tongue. X rated is an orgasm. We've also seen the X for ecstasy. Hand stimulation of a male is a closed fist. A male erection is a circus tent. They're probably not sending a circus tent because the circus is in town. The orgasm, it could be a rocket blasting off or a volcano eruption. Again, these are just a few and the most popular. Again, a lot of it is communication. So let's talk about sex. You got the chick, the bee, and the message symbol. Again, the female genitalia, peach, grapes, eggplant, tacos. Again, like I said before, ready for sex, and you have the rocket and the train. You have foreplay with the dancing emoji, the look, and the bikini. Second base, it could be 2 peaches, it could be 2 grapes, it could be 2 cherries, it could be, but the hand symbols recognizing second. Again, the oral sex and the sexual meaning, sexual meanings there, which could be ejaculation through, and you can see the finger. That's right here would be for female or for male. Your sexting. You really need, I'm not going to through every single one of these because of time, but some of the most popular ones, PIR, parent in room, PAL, parents are listening, 53X is sex. And for those of us that are probably dating ourselves back, but some of these, remember when we had pagers and we used to page people? Think about some of these that was used back in pager days. They are resurfacing, but they sometimes have different meanings. Sugar pic is an erotic photo or either asking for one. IPN, I'm posting naked. 911, parent alert. Maybe the parents are aware of something going on. WTTP, want to trade pics. 420, everybody knows by marijuana. Are you 18? Are you over 18? S2R, send to receive. MPV, FB, my personal F buddy. IWSN, I want sex now. 459, I love you. You guys probably remember that from texting. Or 143, I love you. 182, I hate you. KMS, kill myself. KYS, kill yourself. A lot of with the cyberbullying language there. So we're going to talk about how to set up your restrictions on the phones. So you're going to go to your general tab. You're going to enable the restriction. You'll be asked to enter a 4-digit passcode. I cannot stress enough, do not forget this passcode. You will have to wipe the phone if you forget it. Do not forget the passcode. Also, don't put your date of birth in there or something, you know, your garage passcode or something that the kids are automatically going to be able to figure out, or 4 zeros or whatever. Put something in there that is meaningful to you, but your kids have no clue. Maybe it's your ID, your work ID, or something that they couldn't figure out. You're now going to enable those restrictions. So it could be explicit activity. Now, if you have the iOS 12, you're going to launch settings from your home screen. You're going to tap the screen time, tap content and privacy restrictions. You're going to enter that 4-digit passcode, and then you have to confirm it. You tap the switch to next to content and privacy. You would tap allowed apps, and then tap the switches next to the apps or apps you like to disable. We recommend that you go through all your apps. After doing so, enable those restrictions on installing apps. And by doing this, you're allowing a positive conversation with your child and to discuss why they need this app. Questions such as, why do you want this app? How will I know you're being safe when using it? What will happen if I find out you're being inappropriate while using this app? So you're setting the tone. This is my information. Again, I'm Marina Anderson. I'm the Regional Human Trafficking Coordinator for Northeast and Northwest regions of Florida. My number and my email. Email is the best way to reach me. So if you have a question or concern, please feel free to reach out to me at marina.anderson@myflfamilies.com. We do multiple presentations and trainings. This is just one of them. We have a game training that we're going to be doing and partner with STAC and USF coming up soon. And we also provide training for hospitality, for healthcare, for law enforcement. I'm a trained Florida Sheriff's Association trainer, as well as for the hospitality, pharmaceutical, and healthcare communities. So please feel free, if you're interested in further training, to reach out to me or to Robin as well. They do multiple trainings on this topic. Now, I think we're going to open it up for questions.
Yeah, let me, first of all, Marina, thank you. That was really great. Every time you do this, I learn more, and you've shared so much really great new updated information as well. So we've had several questions and comments in the chat, and I kind of want to summarize them for you because these will go a little bit deeper. So some of this is technical. Quite a few people said, why can't we get these programs in the schools? And I've shared that DOE does have those mandates under their rules, and that every school district in Florida should have a plan. And if you want to get involved with it, then you need to contact your school district and also any of the members of the school board that you might know. And I think that's great anyway, don't you? Because it just tells those elected officials this is really important and that you're watching, right?
Exactly. And they were required to, every school district had to submit a plan of how they were going to implement a K through 12 criteria or curriculum. And of course, as the time goes on, we have folks with DOE that's working with these school districts to find out best practice. You know, we're going to try to figure out different implementation stages. So it is a work in progress, but each school has to now have to plan, and then we're going to narrow it down as time goes about of what that's going to look like and have some standardization across Florida.
And just a little bit of follow up on that. Somebody asked about, what about getting this into private schools? And from what I understand from DOE, charter schools, private schools, they all can do it. I don't know how much they're mandated. I think it might be a local issue. Do you know?
Yeah, usually with private schools and charter schools, if they fall under the district, and of course it just depends on how that's written in their codes. May have to have it, may not have to follow it. With private schools, there are exemptions, but I can tell you, I've been doing this a long time, and you know, honestly, a lot of the private schools were the ones that were coming up first and saying, hey, we need this. So I really haven't had a lot of problems getting into the private schools. You know, of course, they would maybe want us to limit some information on sexual content, which was understandable, but you know, they've been very receptive. And I think a lot of that too is because with working with the task forces, and you guys, you know, you work with Big Ben, I work with all my task forces in my local area. There's a faith-based element to those task forces that are involved. And I think they're really good about getting out into the faith-based community and saying, hey, this is a problem, and we need to make sure that we're educating and making sure our kids are safe. So I think they have really established a good connection, especially in the private schools that has that faith-based element, to really understand that we need this information in our schools.
You know, and that brings up another question someone had about being prohibited from saying the word sex when doing training about sex trafficking of children. So that's huge. And I think there's kind of maybe some naivete that kids are already quite familiar with a lot of this information that you might not think they are. So you're not keeping information from them. You're actually kind of playing into the trafficker's hands, right? If you can't talk about this openly.
Right. And that's why I stress so much, you know, if you're not comfortable talking with it, get it. It can be very uncomfortable, but find someone that is. You know, you maybe have a relative that's in the medical community, or you may have a connectivity with someone within their school system that would be comfortable talking to them, but you have to, because they are learning. And that's why I stress it's not just your preteens, it's your elementary age kids. They know this stuff. They can Google it. They're talking about it. You need to have an open conversation with your kids and an open door policy with your kids.
And somebody mentioned that she's having challenges really getting through on this issue. I'm just hoping she copied your email down, marina.anderson@myfloridafamilies.org. .com. So maybe you can strategize offline, Michelle, with Marina, because that's really not the norm. Usually this is okay for us to have those conversations, and really it's only going to benefit the kids. And I think we can talk about that. I wanted to also, somebody asked at the very beginning, what steps are being taken by authorities, if any, to identify and stop traffickers? And that's really the subject of a whole other presentation. But maybe you can talk a little bit about that, but also talk about how you work with law enforcement at DCF.
Yeah, we work hand in hand. So everything that we have law enforcement has, we're required to notify on the federal, state, and local level. We work in partnership also on task forces with law enforcement. We do multidisciplinary team staffings with law enforcement, discussing what's going on with those particular children. So we have a good working relationship with our law enforcement here locally. Again, really trying to make that connectivity, gathering as much information, because oftentimes, again, we talked about, oftentimes victims do not self-identify. They are in love with their traffickers. They're fearful of their traffickers. Maybe violence is occurring or threats of violence is occurring. There's a lot of drug addiction that may come along with it. So they're withholding substances from them as a way to coerce them. So there's a lot of elements that go along with us being able to identify who the trafficker is. You know, they may not even know their legal name. You know, they know a nickname. But so gathering as much information, their alias names, tattoos, places that they frequent, areas of town they frequent, what type of vehicles are they known to drive, just getting as much information, and not just the traffickers, the buyers as well. We want to focus also, you know, it's not, you know, it's criminality, whether it's trafficking, the trafficker, or the buyer. So going after and trying to identify who are the buyers, and figuring out what we can do to understand that this is not a victimless crime, because that's what we hear so much, and what exactly is going on along with the trafficking is so important.
Great, great. And we've got a couple questions about sometimes the risk that's posed when you make these presentations, that you're actually informing people of something they didn't know about, and that kids might exploit other kids. So how do you kind of work out that organizationally when you're doing one of these presentations?
Right. I mean, that is definitely a risk. You know, we get that a lot on what if, you know, traffickers are watching to see what we do know, or what to look for, what tell the kids not to do, or what have you. And that is always a risk that we have to take, but we have to also understand that we have to be able to educate community. We have to get parents to know what to look for, and having that open door policy with your kids. I think that's so important, because you're right. There could be other kids out there that's recruiting kids, or other kids out there that might be exploiting their kids or cyberbullying their kids, or use techniques maybe they learn, whether that's this presentation or something else that's out there on the internet. But the importance is that you have that communication with your kids, that if this happens, come to you. Even though, yes, would you be disappointed? Yes, we're parents. Of course, we're going to be disappointed. But at the same time, we're there to protect them. And that's our ultimate goal and responsibility, is to help and protect your kids. So they have to know they can come to you. If they did send that picture, or someone's using a picture against them, or a video against them, or someone's using some type of cyberbullying, they have to be able to come to you, or come to someone. If it's not you, who is it? They need a safe person.
Mm-hmm. We've got a couple questions about who is more vulnerable, who is most vulnerable, who could be vulnerable. So one person asked about persons with disabilities being at higher risk, including high functioning autism or Down syndrome. Also, someone just asked, is there any risk factor involved if there's a 2-parent versus 1-parent family? And I wonder about that, because your video had 2 pretty present parents right there, right?
I would say just an active parent, right? Because even a lot of 2-parent households, maybe not both parents are active. One may work extremely long hours, or one parent has more responsibility than the others, or has more face-to-face time with the child than the other. So mainly just having an active parent or active adult. It may not be a parent, right? It could be a grandparent that might live in the home, or it may be another relative, or it may be a roommate, or what have you. Just having an adult there to be able to, again, be that safe person, to have that supervision. As far as the vulnerability, absolutely, kids or adults that are vulnerable, whether it's learning disabilities, cognitive disabilities, physical disabilities, again, our foster care, our group care youth are all at risk, and are at a higher heightened risk than even, I guess you would say, your average kid. But that's what I really wanted to focus on with this particular training. It's not just that population. A lot of times we focus so much on the at-risk population, and we think, well, if the kids are involved in sports, if the kids are involved in clubs, or if the kids are popular, or the kids have a good friend group, or all these things, and they're not really at risk. They don't have priors with DCF. They don't have a lot of family dysfunction. So they're really at low risk. I can tell you with this recruitment piece, no kid is at low risk. All kids are at risk. And you do have some that are, of course, at a higher risk.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Couple of questions. One is getting training to school resource officers, which those folks are usually part of law enforcement, and they have mandatory training now, right?
That's right. If they're a sworn officer, whether they're school, whether they're, airport police, it doesn't matter. They fall under the same category if that's part of their ongoing continued education for their certification, Florida certification. We do sometimes also, when we go out and do trainings through the educators, we also have the school resource officers participate with those trainings, because they get a kind of a different outlook than necessarily, of course, I do law enforcement training as well. That looks completely different than my educator's training. Mm-hmm. So it's a different aspect of what to look for in the school setting opposed to in a law enforcement setting. So we do encourage that those school resource officers do participate in those type of trainings as well. And those educators are being trained based on that DOE curriculum, that they're also participating.
And the DOE piece is so big, I think, and what the Department of Education has done about training school bus drivers. Now, nobody asked about that, but really, the receptionist in the principal's office, everybody should get this training, right?
Yeah, everybody. School, like you said, school resource officers, bus drivers, the cafeteria workers, the custodial workers. A lot of times they have more contact than, the other school staff. So, and they are hearing that chatter, in the hallways or in the lunchroom, or on the school buses. So yeah. Again, that is important.
I'm thinking sometimes of the women who work in men that work in the cafeteria. They can be really seeing kids every day and develop rapport, and could be that trusted adult that you mentioned earlier. So questions about curricula that are available. So one is, are there curricula for group homes or safe houses to teach this internet safety issues? Alicia's asking that. And safety for the victims who need to be rewired from the normalcy or the kind of, they've gotten used to the idea of this is what their life is. How do you help with that rewiring? And also, how do you do some outreach to get churches to pay attention?
Okay, so that was a lot, one question. But so as far as the safe homes, the at-risk homes, they do have a social media piece built into their training, or we have built it in, I should say. The new curriculum that we just launched recently has many of the slides that we talked about today is in that curriculum to train safe homes and to train at-risk homes on what to look for on that social media piece. As far as educating the children that are in the homes, yeah, that I definitely strongly suggest that you're doing that. Of course, it would be a curriculum usually that's based on what the Safe Homes is putting out there for their youth. Talking about the faith-based community and getting them engaged, I think that's a big piece of that comes out of that task force. And we have a task force in every circuit. If you're in Florida, if you are wanting to know who is your local contact, you can definitely reach out to me and I'll let you know who your local contact is for your local human trafficking coalition or task force. But that faith-based community piece is in there, that education awareness piece is there to go out within not only the faith-based community, just the community at large, to educate all populations on trafficking. And the social media piece is just, of course, one part of it, but it is definitely an important part.
And were you mentioning, I'm sorry, I was looking at the, I was looking at the questions. Did you mention online the National Human Trafficking Resource Center and their big faith-based curriculas
Yes.
that are?
Right. And I think that's in your toolkit, right? That you were talking about earlier. Doesn't that have information?
It is not in ours, but we, always link up to the National Human Trafficking Hotline. If y'all don't know that, but that is really a great place. And by the way, in the chat, everybody is great. You are putting in lots of good information about how you yourselves, or of people who are doing this training in your schools at the local level. This is so great to see. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you do have Polaris Project, which is what funds the National Human Trafficking Hotline. You have Blue Campaign that also has a lot of good information about sextortion and internet. NetSmart is another good one for children to educate, especially younger children or teens, on internet safety and just many other topics, cyberbullying. They have a lot of good resources on there. And that's NETSMARTZ. .com, I believe, or it's .org, I'm not sure. But if you Google it, again, Google's my best friend. You can Google it and a lot of good material would come up.
Great. We have somebody here talking about being in the military, active duty, something that they can do to bring more awareness to the command at the Naval Hospital in Pensacola. And gosh, can I just real quick, let you know that, of course, in Florida, probably as a healthcare provider that, I don't know if this applies on federal jurisdictional lands, but we do have posters. It's called compliance poster on our website that we can get you copies of those to put up in any healthcare setting. And this is for everybody. If you need posters that help you comply with Florida law for free, you might have to help us with postage. We're a nonprofit. We do our best, but that would be a great help. But we can get you those posters with the National Human Trafficking Hotline number on in English and Spanish that comply with Florida law. But I'm thinking about Pensacola, Marina, maybe you've already been doing some of that work.
Yeah, I mean, we have participants on the task force that's within the different commands or different, what am I trying to say? Different forms of military. I get the names are eluding me right now. But what we do also, at least in our local area in Jacksonville, which we have two main military bases through NS Jackson, NAS Mayport, and we did a huge training for them last year where all the commands participated and was required to participate, as well as the victim advocates and hospital staff leadership, to really talk about what human trafficking looks like on the local level. And that's something that we could definitely replicate in Pensacola or other areas as well. Of course, just getting the base commanders on board to require that training, because I think that's definitely important. That's how you get people there. But I mean, we had hundreds of people trained here locally through the military. to go back and talk to their command. And we cover different areas, and we may not normally cover in trainings with that, because we did have some cases with sextortion on military personnel where they were chatting with people. It was actually some ladies in the Philippines, and they used those pictures and live webcamming and used it against them, and said if they didn't send money, that they would notify their command and that they would notify their wives. And if some of you may know, infidelity is still against military penal code. So that caused some issues there. And actually, unfortunately, the way we found out about that is there was a suicide that took place within the military. So, and that's how it broke that case. So that kind of launched some of our trainings with the military, but definitely if that's something you're interested in, please feel free to reach out to me and we'll see what we can do to get a training locally to you.
That's great. And really, since the outset of the TVPA, the military has been on this White House working group and has been involved. So there is a lot of federal stuff out there that maybe you could just end up sharing with the command there. But just let me know about the posters. Take a look at our website and look at that toolkit again. There's bunches of information for you all over the place. All right, so I'm going to turn it back over. I'm going to say thank you, Marina. You were awesome again.